Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Elliott. I'm the Assistant Township Manager. Thanks, everyone, for coming out tonight to talk about facilities, specifically in we'll call it the east end of the township. We're here tonight to ask you all what your thoughts and opinions are on kind of where we go in the future with these facilities. We know we have a lot of aging facilities. We know we have a lot of problems with the facilities. So we have hired the architecture firm of KCBA and ReVision Architecture to help guide us through the process of looking at our facilities, understanding what it would take to rehabilitate the facilities to get them up into working order, and also what the best option for us is. And we're going to say it is not off the table for us to consider a brand new facility somewhere or combining some or all of these facilities. So right now it's a very open-ended process as we go forward. So we're looking for what your vision is for a community, for facilities that would provide opportunities for our residents. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Drew, Eric, and Jamie.
Thanks, Allison.
All right, I'm just going to share my screen, and we won't keep you in Zoom for too long because we know everyone sees too much of it every day. So we're just going to do a real quick introduction for all of us, and then we're going to turn off Zoom so we can all see each other again, and then really focus on some conversation. So Allison, thank you for the introduction. As Allison mentioned, we're here tonight as part of you all can see my screen, right? Before I get going, someone give me a thumbs up. All right, awesome. So yeah, we're here as part of this township-wide facilities study, and really tonight we're focusing on the Roland Community Center, the East Cheltenham Library, and the other facilities there. And so just some quick introductions here, if I can get my slide to advance. So I'm Drew Levine. I'm from ReVision Architecture, we're a firm based in Manayunk. I am a Cheltenham resident, very proud to be working here with my home township. I've been a resident here for about 10 years, and it's really a privilege to meet you all and to work on the future of our township. So, Eric.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Gianelli. I am too a resident of Cheltenham for nearly 30 years now. I've been fortunate to raise two daughters through the schools and off to college, and now at least the first one is working, and the second one is going to get a physician assistant's degree over at Salis. So she's staying local, which is great. She's been a part of the EMT service in Cheltenham and serving the community well. A little bit about KCBA. This is our 50th year. I haven't been there for 50 years, but I've been there for a long time. We specialize in these township facilities, your libraries, your recreational type facilities, fire, police, EMT, and public works. So we've been doing that for 50 years. We've recently been working in Abington Township, up in Moreland Township. We currently have a facility under construction in Plymouth Township. So to me, it's an honor to work with Cheltenham, as I'm a resident. I'm an expert in these type of facilities. Hopefully I can give my experience and my resources over the 30, 40 years of practice. And so I'm looking forward to working with all of you and helping our community for the next 40, 50, 60 years. And for hopefully my children's kind of future.
All right. Hey, Jamie, you want to just jump in real quick and say hello to everybody?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Bortz. I'm at KCBA with Eric. I'm a project manager for the firm. I've been working on a lot of these studies that Eric had mentioned with him. I'm not a resident of Cheltenham, but I'm very familiar with your area and looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say tonight.
Thanks. A little bit about my company, ReVision. So we do a bunch of different things at ReVision. We do architecture. We're a green architecture and planning firm. We really focus on sustainability and sustainable design in architecture. We do building performance services. So we go and work with buildings, and we do testing and verification services on them, looking at geeky, green building, building science kinds of things. We do sustainable certifications. If anyone's ever heard of LEED, it's a building certification. We do that. We also do some organizational certifications that really focus on organizational transparency and social equity. We work with B Corp and Just certification. And then we also have our roots in community engagement. We love working with groups of people, whether it's, tonight, where it's just a good group of us here on Zoom. We've done week-long charrettes with 150 residents to plan new buildings, or we do a small focus group, but we love people, right? We know that buildings don't exist in a vacuum. It's really about the people and what people do. So that's kind of the root for our firm. But above all, we're really set up to remove barriers to green buildings and sustainable communities. It's just so exciting for me to bring my firm to the table here in the township to really think about our future and all the wonderful aspects of it. Just last thing here, with the township facilities study, Eric, you want to kind of go at a high level here on what we're doing in the study?
Yeah, so some of the early tasks for us will be to explore all the township buildings. We're going to do an assessment of the buildings. What needs to be required to get them up and running, get them code compliant, get them ADA compliant. Security is a #1 priority for most communities, for their staff, their community themselves, and those resources. So we're going to bring all that and go through each facility and create a report, which we'll end up ultimately giving to the commissioners. It'll give them what the value to restore those buildings will be. And then we're also, at the same time, we're going to be meeting with all the departments and creating a program for them to see, is our program working? Is there going to be growth over the next 20 years? And so that we can plan for making sure those facilities, like say Roland, that it has enough space. Does the space really work? Does it work for those recreational programs? Does it work for the arts? Does it work for the dance? Does it work for the library? And I'm sure I may be missing somebody. Don't take offense. I'm just rambling off the top of my head. But we'll go through there and we'll give them a program report about what their facilities can contain, and can the envelope of existing buildings contain them, or do we need to plan for future growth? So that's the first level of steps. Once we get there, we'll start to explore ideas on what the renovation could look like, what the expansion could look like, and really kind of develop some scenarios for the commissioners to make a decision about where the future could go in, as well as the community. We'll then dive into community charrettes, and we'll bring you in, and we'll review these ideas and your ideas, and we'll work together to kind of help create what some of these options might be for everybody to decide on. And then we'll ultimately put prices to all those options, and ultimately put a package together that the commissioners and everybody can see, what the right decision is for the community.
All right, so we promised you short and sweet on the PowerPoint, so now we can get back to seeing each other. As Eric said, we're just at the very beginning of our study here, and what's really important to us is to hear from the community, our neighbors here, about what good looks like. That's what we really want to focus on here tonight. It's a simple statement, but it's totally loaded. And specifically, as Eric mentioned, the scope of the study is really all of the facilities in the township, right? Not just community buildings. We're looking at the police station, the township building, public works, right? We're looking at all these things, but we are also within this looking at the community services. And so, specifically in relationship to you all, we've got the Roland Community Center and East Cheltenham Library, the Conklin Pool, we've got the Communities Arts Center. And so really tonight, what we want to hear from you is, as we think about the future and start to think about where we go as a township, to really focus on what good looks like for our township's future relative to community services. So we'll facilitate the conversation here, and we'll try and do less talking, and because we really want to hear from you. So Who wants to open it up? What does good look like for our township relative to our community services? Anybody? Someone out there wants to talk.
Like we have a very shy bunch tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Rhonda.
All right.
There we go. Here's my concern, and I love that center, but my concern are the environmental issues that are going on there and the improper size of the HVAC. So I think those are two things that really need to be addressed. Because I know that there's mold and asbestos in that building, which just really isn't a healthy environment. But, you know, that center is such a hub for that neighborhood that we really need to figure out how we can best address that we can keep something there.
So Rhonda, one of the things that we'll be doing in that study is to check the HVAC, electric and plumbing. I know that it's an old school, it has an addition to the old school, so the mechanical systems might be different. We haven't gone through that, and I'm hoping to schedule a time with Allison to start, and it'll probably be rolling next week, to kind of really dive into this building and check that portions of it out. Remember, mold isn't always just about HVAC, which is a key component. It's a lot of it has to do with the exterior envelope, whether it's the roof and the exterior walls. And, you know, are we allowing moisture in, moisture drive in, moisture vapor in, up from the slab? HVAC and AC does a great job of removing the moisture, but I'd like to be able to take a look at the facility and see what we can do to stop that moisture drive from getting into the building. And maybe the mechanical system won't have to work so hard in the next 40 years. And I'm sure Drew can talk about that on sustainable, but it's really that envelope that really is the first layer. The mechanical system, it's support, but you don't want to have to rely on the mechanical. You want to have a better envelope.
Here's my understanding of the HVAC. When we replaced it, it should have been double the size. And so in order to get it to the adequate size, the pipes are all on the wall. So we'd have to tear the whole wall apart. So I think that needs to get addressed, doesn't it?
Yep.
And you two don't know me, but I have a 40-year background in construction and infrastructure.
Hey, Rhonda, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I want to try to there's a bunch of really good things that you mentioned, and I want to try and like lift these up as topics here to record, because I think as we look forward, and if we can answer the question of what does good look like for community, you said there were three things that you mentioned, and I just want to make sure I'm hearing right. So the first one had to do with health, and we're talking about healthy indoor environments.
Correct.
Right? Good. All right. So I think that's a really important topic. I'm totally with you on that.
Well, because I've seen the pictures and there's a huge amount of mold and asbestos on the third floor. Am I not correct?
Yes.
Which is grossly unhealthy. And then when it gets sucked into the HVAC, it's going into the whole system and into the whole building, which gives me great concern for the community.
The old building, and I agree with Drew, you know, number one thing is going to be about the healthy buildings. The older building isn't on the same system as, say, where the library is. I'm not saying that some of those mold spores aren't in the air, but they haven't found a home on the one end of the building that I seen in my tour the other day. But I agree with you, the older section, the original schoolhouse section, that 4 square, there's some challenges. There's absolutely some challenges on that upper level.
Okay, so healthy indoor environment. I think we're absolutely. I saw another hand go up. I just want to put it. I want to grab these other two real quick because they're very important, and I don't want to let them go because I think we're all going to agree with this. The second one is you were talking about the sizing of the HVAC, and so when I hear about sizing of the HVAC, what it makes me think about, and you know, we can talk, we'll have time tonight to talk about energy and sustainability, but I think that there's an even more, you know, foundational question here, which is adequate thermal comfort. That we've got systems in our building that make them comfortable for the people who are using there. And then Rhonda, I think that the other part that you kind of tagged in here, and you're spot on, is that those systems are also critical to maintaining the indoor air quality in our buildings. And once those systems start to not work, that's when we have problems that start to compound upon themselves. So it's really the idea of a healthy indoor environment and right-sized HVAC systems is they really go hand in hand.
And not to take up everybody else's time, but I think that's a big concern of mine. And when we look at that, don't we have to do a balance of, is it better just to start over? Or is it really feasible to fix those? Because my understanding is trying to upgrade the HVAC in that building is going to be almost more expensive than, and I've consulted with people about this, that it's going to be more expensive than just starting over.
Yeah.
I don't think you know the answer to that yet, and that's fine.
Yep.
But that's a question that I think I and others would like to have answered.
It is one of the questions. And I think that, with the study that Eric, Jamie, and I are going to be working on here, we want to make sure that we can look at multiple scenarios so we can make the best decision as residents of the township, that we get everything laid out on the table from, okay, if we do a renovation and an upgrade of the building, or as Allison mentioned, like if we do combined services, major renovations, new construction, right? There's a whole bunch of different things that we can evaluate. And I think we'll look at what that may take so we can make the right decisions in the long run.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And
Thanks,
you
Ron.
said something else that was super important. You had a third point in there, which I caught, which I also want to lift up, which is you said the center is a hub for the neighborhood.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I caught that in there. And I think that
that's why, honestly, I don't live in that neighborhood, but when I started working in, with citizens in the neighborhood with the sewer system, that was one neighborhood that embraced me, and I got to really understand that section of the township, and I learned how important that center is for the neighborhood, and it's a key component of keeping that neighborhood strong in our township.
Can you or maybe another resident elaborate a little bit on that point about like what it is about this center that really does keep the neighborhood strong and keeps it going and has such meaning and value to the neighborhood? Okay, I see someone with their hand up. I'm pretty sure your name's not Nancy, even though that's what it says on your screen. You're muted.
That is Sarah Covell.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to talk later.
Actually, Sarah, real quick, there was another gentleman right in the red Phillies hat he's trying to talk and he was muted. I'll get you
I'm
next.
sorry. Oh, that's Charlie. Sorry.
Yep, you're next in line.
Oh, then no problem.
Okay. No, it's really important, that community center. I went to school there in 1990, 1960. Okay. I had my 6 kids, and all of them and the whole neighborhood always gathered there. Meeting rooms are there. I put in, dance studio, the basketball courts, and the libraries were so important. And I know it needs a lot of work. I know the problems that are there. And I think we can overcome those problems, maintain that building. It's this historical part of our community over here. I live here in the village, been here all my life. And it's changed, of course, everything changes. But what you guys are capable of doing is a lot, which I understand because I studied you guys a little bit before we're on tonight. And I'm hoping, my hope and dream is that we can continue good community work there, good library system. I'd love to see us to be able to put a ramp style second floor into that library because it needs more room, or an additional off to the back of it. but then it's going to interrupt some of the driveway problem areas. And then the stairway area, okay, which going up to the third floor, it's been a storage area for everything for many, many years now. And yeah, there's asbestos all over up there, down in the walls now, because it hasn't been maintained. I just think that even for handicapped people to have access to our building, I think you need to put an elevator system in. And I know it's expensive, but to make it work for everybody, from the basement floor to the third floor, I think we need to do something over there. I really do. And that was my dream. And I was a commissioner for 20 years. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that done and finish the community center. But I'd like to know where the money's going to, how we're going to get the money for everything that we want to do in the entire township. That's going to be a challenge. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for your comments. So I'm gonna do the same thing with you, because I heard a bunch of things in there that I just want to lift up for everyone here about what good looks like for a community center. So
Right.
jump in if I'm misrepresenting. The first thing I heard, which it is very important, is a connection to our neighborhood history and
Yeah.
culture.
Yes.
I heard, yeah. I also heard that we need to expand the library,
Mhm.
right? And really build
Right.
on the success of the
Yes.
library system, you know? Now there's you mentioned community meetings. So I think that's a whole discussion in and of itself, right? This is a place
yes,
where the
yes.
like a successful community center has to have places for people to gather and to be together, learn together.
We
Teach
have the
together.
room. We
Yep.
do have the room to expand on what the township needs. If we need meetings in the east, we can make these rooms available and make them work for everybody. And for the air conditioning and heating systems, we know that they can be redone and done properly. The roofing, you know as well as I do, it's another problem. But we just have to work our way through it and work on it and see if we can come up with a good solution. I
Right.
don't want to lose those buildings.
Yep, absolutely. So the other thing you mentioned that I just want to bring up, because this is super important, and I'm glad you brought it up, is accessibility.
Yes.
Right. We want to make sure that our township facilities are open and accessible and equitable to everybody in the township.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right. Yep. So thank you. There's some really good ones there.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, Sarah, you've been waiting patiently after I cut
Okay.
you off last time.
It's okay. So with all due respect, I voiced my opinion before, and I'm going to do it again. I do live outside the Cheltenham Village by just a few blocks. So I am in the East Cheltenham area. And my kids, when they were younger, attended dance classes, karate, etc. I am 100% for tearing down that building and building an amazing facility that is in the central Cheltenham Township that is for everybody in the township. One facility for everybody. I understand people's, history of the township, memories, etc. But it's just a building that is unsafe, unhealthy. You have to remember this building has dark hallways, a lot of hiding places. It has invited hoodlums and a lot of mischief into that building in the last several years. I do not go to that building anymore. As far as meetings go, yes, at some point, years and years ago, there used to be large community meetings with a lot of people attending. But I would say in the last 5-10 years at least, the meeting size has been much smaller. And just frequently, in the last couple of years or so, people have adjusted to this Zoom meeting. I mean, there's a reason we're on Zoom and we're not in one of those school rooms that is unhealthy and unsafe. People have gotten used to being online, and we do not need to create meeting space in multiple areas of our township. So I am 100% for tearing down that building and selling the land and doing whatever. But I am for relocating the library to a storefront on Central or Ryers Avenue that is much smaller. We don't need as many books, but we do need, small meeting rooms. We need computers that all could be transported and made into a really nice storefront with even like a small cafe or, a coffee bar that would entice people to walk from the neighborhood. So I am for 100% envisioning something different that is forward thinking, not the same thing that we've had in the past.
Thank you, Sarah. I want to pull out a few bullet points here from this. And one thing that you said that you came right out of the gate and said it. You used the word amazing, and that's a pretty powerful word here when we're thinking about our township and saying like we want a facility that, like, for us, what good looks like for a community center is something amazing. And I think it's like such a great starting point here. So, if you would like to elaborate on that idea and why it is important, that would be great. Or I can go on to my next one.
So having one central recreation building that is similar to what other townships are doing. And I always look at Springfield Township that just redid their buildings, where it's all inclusive, these different spaces, whether it's game rooms, whether it's like pool tables, ping pong tables, a gym, a place for seniors to gather, where there's maybe, board games, whatever. They can play canasta, mahjong, whatever. And looking at what other townships have done things that have created accessible spaces for handicapped, wheelchair accessible, and a gathering place to learn, maybe lectures, things like that, where maybe the libraries could move those lecture spaces, people who are giving lectures to the new building.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
great.
think there's different land in our township that where a building of a certain size could be created instead of funneling money that we don't have into these old buildings. And I'm just curious, like, how much are we already pouring into this recreation center? And again, the safety of it is just overwhelming. It is so unsafe. And
True.
there's never enough security. There's never enough supervision. And there's no security cameras. And you create an area where people are not necessarily from the neighborhood are going there. And we don't know who these kids are. They're not, in the school system, and they're coming in, and you can ask the township if they clean up the playground, there's drugs on the playground. There's trash. It is not a safe area as much as people want to believe it is.
And Drew, one of the things I heard there was the security, something I talked about, group security and safety. And this is true of all the facilities, whether it's community center, library, township facility, police, EMS, whatever. That security will definitely be a part of the scope. And I hear you, Sarah. I agree that is a concern. And security cameras will help, but the staffing will be needed, and our community needs to be there to keep everybody safe.
Sarah, there was a couple other points I want to hit. Diane, I see your hand up. I'm going to get to you in a second, but Sarah, there were a couple other points that I want to bring up here. So you said one of your reasons for the idea of a central facility as what good looks like for the township is you said it's for everyone, not just the neighborhood. And that is a pretty powerful statement. And I want to share something that I heard 2 weeks ago in our pop-up session with the Lamont community. And I see that Darlene is on the call. She was there for this. There was a woman who was speaking who did not live in Lamont. She lived in Glenside, and she's lived in Glenside for a very long time. And she said she used to bring her daughters to the Lamont Community Center for dance class and for other things. And that was something that, to me, I really enjoyed hearing about someone from Glenside coming to Lamont and thinking about, people who don't live in the same neighborhood getting to know each other at the community center. And so when you brought up the idea that if we had a central community center, that it would be for everyone in the township, that really kind of resonated with me. I can tell you where I live, I don't really have in the township, I don't really have a community center that I can jump to. And so it's pretty cool. I'd love to meet people in different neighborhoods in the township and get to know them and do activities with them. So I appreciate that you brought that up. And then I did get safety and security. The last one I wanted to bring up, because I think this is another important issue as we think forward, is you talked about rethinking a modern library. And what does that mean as, in 2022, 2023, 2033, right? Because I think we all know that libraries are changing. I still like books. I like to hold real books. Not everyone does anymore. And, I think that, this is a real important time and the opportunity to reflect on what makes a successful library that reaches people of all ages, of all skill levels. So I really appreciated you bringing up that one too. That's a great thought.
I do want to add that when my kids were younger, Lamont had a cooking class. So we went to Lamont for the cooking class, dropped my daughter off. We played on the playground while she was in the class. So yes, going to different recreation centers is maybe common, non-common, I'm not sure, but by having a central community center, you meet everybody in the township. You don't just meet your little area. And eventually they do go to school together, or they play softball or, t-ball together and so forth. As far as the library concept, I'm not a library expert, but there's a reason that the schools got rid of their books, unfortunately. Cheltenham High School, they got rid of their books. There's some new way of doing a library, and I'm not an expert, but I think, like I said before, adding a coffee bar or, doing, games or whatever it is, I think that could be envisioned. And of course, you can always order a book online, or if you go to the desk, they order a book and they get it to you within a week or a few days. So the books are accessible no matter what.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Diane, you've been waiting patiently.
Hi. So a few things, and I don't know if I have them in an orderly fashion. So first of all, I live adjacent to the building, so I have a lot of experience, both good and bad. We are a walking community right here in the central part of the village. And so even though the building closed down with COVID and there were no programs offered, and then eventually the library closed, and yes, there is debris. And the township comes and does the best they can to come and clean it up. However, if you were to come through here, not on 100-degree days, but the other days, the playground, early in the morning, as early as 6:30 and 7 o'clock, there are moms with their kids in the strollers coming even before the sun is hot, still using the playground. The basketball courts now in the summertime with schools out are places that are keeping some of our young people very, very busy. There has been some vandalism and some graffiti, and the township's been responsive to that. This is also a polling place for this community, which I don't think I've heard anybody mention, and that's very important. With the libraries, so I see a library as more than books. Anybody can read anything online, but if you have to do a research project, or you're trying to look for something, or you need other assets, and our library system provides many more things than books for people to take out. There are many outreach programs. Napoleon Nelson now has, I think it's through his office, is offering some social type services to help people who are in different difficulties. There's story hours, there's things that are put in the parks to help improve literacy. And I'm sure I don't know everything that's going on. My major concern is an empty building. We even know in places like Narberth, it's been in the newspapers, there's a building in the midst of a wonderful neighborhood, and it's now a rat-infested trap. My concern is, in the meantime, like, what happens, how long does it take to make this decision? And then in the meantime, what's going on? We talk about safety. I do believe that there are security cameras on the exterior of the building. I was told that they go to the police station. I don't know if that is correct. So those, I would say, are like the highlights of my concerns. But at one time, this was pre-COVID, a very active center. And we are very densely populated. When the center closed, there was a lot more what I will call illegal juvenile activity around the building. And I believe a lot of that has to do with, as with the city, you reduce programs, there's nowhere for youth to go. So I think that's all of my points. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm also gonna, I pulled out a bunch of really good points in there to kind of summarize. The idea of providing walkable activities to occupy young people, right? I think that's critical here, and I think that, to your point, this keeps the young people occupied, keeps them out of mischief, right? Gives them a safe place to go. So I think that that's something that, as I'm sure there's a lot of parents on here tonight, I think we can all feel good about that. I love that you brought up polling places. You know, we got to have places where we can go. I think we know now, you know, our voting rights are more important than ever before. And so we got to do whatever we can to continue to facilitate that as easily as possible, as accessible as possible for everyone. You also brought up, kind of in a tangential way there, the idea of space for learning and, you know, working on literacy and things like that. And so, you know, just again, as we think about a community center, what does good look like? I think it is, you know, a space, both physical and also just kind of, you know, philosophically, that is a place for learning and education. So thank you very much for your comments, Diane.
Thank you.
All right, Barbara, I see you have your hand up.
She's
Barbara,
muted.
I think you're muted.
Better?
Yep.
Yeah, there you are.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I don't want to spend an inordinate amount of time on only East Cheltenham, but since that is my community and I am the president of the Library Friends for the East Cheltenham Library, I feel uniquely qualified to speak to some of the concerns that people have brought up. Interesting that the last speaker brought up polling, because I was going to address that also. However, there is a notice on the community center door that it is not going to be used as a polling place in November. So I can't tell you where they are polling. I don't remember whether that was even mentioned, but they were open for polling during COVID, although we were not open for anything else. The community center has historically been used for classes, meetings, the library, the cafeteria space in the basement has been rented out for parties. The East Cheltenham Community Council uses it for its lunch with Santa every year. It's a very outdated old cafeteria. I'm not saying whether it should be saved or not, but I'm just saying that a lot of the space in that building is used. However, the second and third floors are not used. So I think it behooves our looking at the fact that we do not need to address that building in its entirety if we decide to do something with it. Community Council used to store all of their costumes and other paraphernalia on the third floor, and I have been up there and I wouldn't go up there anymore. It's not a great place. Everybody agrees it's not safe. It's accessible to people who shouldn't have access, but there are 2 stories in that building that are never used for anything. And so why should we try to heat, cool, resurrect, or do anything with them when they're not currently being used and they haven't been? The first floor consists of the library and classrooms that are used for story time for the library, for meeting space for the East Cheltenham Friends, for meeting space for the East Cheltenham Community Council, for all kinds of classes. And, you know, that is the integral, that's really the heart of the building. Regarding a central location, I know that this has been bandied back and forth for multiple years. Multiple focus groups for township and for library users have shown, yes, it's a wonderful idea and it's very lovely, but we want our community hubs. And to the fact that books are not all that are in the library, I can tell you for a fact that that's for sure. The library is offering more now than it ever has with the limited amount of budget that they have available to do it and the wonderful staff that we have. And I'm not just saying that because I've been a part of it, but I believe that it is true. And I think that you need to take into consideration that not everybody has access to the internet. I know that that is a fact. And today I had a physician in his office get very short with me because he wanted to install an app on my phone and I didn't have the ability to pay for it on the phone. I don't use that to pay for things. And he just said, well, you're not going to be able to do that. And he put it down and that was the end of it. And I think it disenfranchises a lot of people to assume that they have access to a computer, can order a book, can do what they want to do. And I don't think that's necessarily true, especially for a lot of our seniors or some of the folks who are just not as, I don't want to say they're disadvantaged, but in this respect, they are. They are not on an equal par with the rest of us who just go into a room in our house or go onto our phone and get access to whatever we want to have access to. So I think there are a lot of underlying facets here that we have to think about. I understand that progress is not always popular. I get it. I've lived in my current house here for 49 years, and I've lived in the township my entire life. I'm not going to go into any other numbers because you'll do the math and then you'll know the answer. But I really think that some things that are old and established are sometimes worth keeping, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Charlie, I heard you about the elevator. I had to smile because if it were all on one floor, we would not need an elevator. There is good access to that cafeteria right through the parking lot. So not to, diss any of your ideas, but there are probably other ways of working around it so that we don't have to do something that's not absolutely necessary. I also can tell you that the township is not and was not providing security in that building. And that's what the library was told. And therefore, when the library is open, and it is now, and probably will be until it's closed again in the fall, you need to ring the doorbell to be let in, and you cannot go into that building for any other purpose other than using the library. The library has maintained its own staffing there to be sure that people using the library are safe. That's an unfortunate thing, but township had decided previously that they weren't going to pay to have somebody there just for that purpose. So that's that security issue. While we know it's important, it's not something that we're getting tremendous amount of cooperation on. Regarding the fact that kids come in or young people come in that aren't from our area, I hate to tell you, but that's not the only place that people come in to who are not from our area. You go down to the Tookenny Creek Park, and I walk there all the time, you will see all kinds of people who are non-residents and non-area folks there. So I don't think there's really any way to eliminate certain groups of people from accessing community centers or whatever. There are often people that stop in there just to use the restroom. And you know, that's just a fact of life. I guess you have to balance whether having a safe place for those kids is better, no matter where they come from, than having them out in the neighborhood and getting them into mischief. And even if they're not using the library for books or computer, if they're just hanging out and sitting at a table and talking quietly, they're not doing anything that's counterproductive. So there's a lot of different tendrils that go into what is a community center. And I don't know that much about Lamont other than the library, but I would assume it's just sort of more of a microcosm of what East Cheltenham is like, because it's so much smaller. But I know that's a very viable place for that community, and they offered different things. And I know their building is not in good shape, but I can't speak to it as well as I can to the building at East Cheltenham. So I think I've monopolized enough time, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. You had some great points in here too. And just so everyone knows, I'm not like bringing up things that have already been brought up, because I think we're like, there's certain things that we're all rallying around here. And I want to lift up the things that we haven't talked about yet. And so one of them that you brought up was the cafeteria and a food service space and an event space where people can host parties and things like that. Again, these are like what makes a good community center. One of the things, don't laugh, but for architects, this is like one of the banes of our existence, but we got to do it on every building, right? Every building needs storage. You brought up storage, and you know, I do think, you know, because you know, Eric and I were walking all over the building the other day, and we saw the storage up there, and some of the things there, it's really interesting. It's like these are things that relate to seasonal events, or there were some historic things in there. And you know, I don't want to, you know, I think what you're getting at is really important, right? In order to have a community building, we need to have storage for our stuff. It's not going to be any fun if we don't have any seasonal things out that we, you know, we got to have a place for that. So I know it sounds trivial, but it's super important. I really like what you were saying about balancing reliance on the digital world with the analog world. And I think, again, you know, as we think about what does it mean to be equitable in our facilities, it is not just catering to a digital world, right? And really thinking about how do we make it this place inviting for anyone who wants to come in and not intimidating. We don't want it to be, you know, totally digital and someone who's not fluent in that feels uncomfortable being there. So I appreciated that. And I also, you posed a really great question, which is really, how far does our community extend? And I think that's a great question. I know I'll just say, like, anecdotally, I've got a friend who lives over in Abington Township and wanted us to come to, I can't remember the name of the park there. And it's like, you can only enter the park if you're an Abington Township resident.
Alvethorpe.
Alvethorpe. Yeah, that's what I thought it was. It was Alvethorpe Park. And I was like, right? Like, I can't go into your park, right?
No, you can't.
Yeah, and I'm like, I just live right like a minute away, right? Why can't I go into your park, right? So I like that you brought up the question of how far does our community extend? And if we are making a community center, you know, what is the balance of services for residents versus services to the public? You know, I think that's a great a great question to pose and to think about with our township.
Can I please add one more thing, Drew, very
Yeah, of
quickly?
course.
And I'm very sorry that I didn't put this in, and I can't believe I forgot it. But in the Roland Community Center is a book sale room
Yep.
that was administered by the Friends of the Library. It breaks my heart because I have been in charge of it for years and we cannot open. I have been trying to de-accession all of the books in that room, and you know what? No matter what I do, it looks like there's nobody that's even touching them because that's been in there for years. And that's been a really, not to mention the part of the monetary concern for whatever the Friends of the Library make from the sale of those books, which are all donated. And that money goes back to the East Cheltenham Library. But the fact that it's like a little neighborhood store right in the midst of where you are. People come in, they come with their kids. It's really exciting. They can buy a book for 25 cents. And now it's been closed up. COVID has made that happen, unfortunately, and we cannot get into the building to allow any kind of sale to happen. So that's a very hard pill to swallow, to watch a bookstore that's been vibrant and a part of the community for many, many, many years. It's finished. And that I forgot that takes up a whole large section of that first floor in the building. If you were in there, you probably looked through the one door and you could see it. But that's a sad thing to have to say goodbye to. I understand that, the way it is, but that was another great use for a community center. There was a bookstore in there, which was kind of cool. So thank you. I'll be done.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, I don't see any hands up, but I know, oh, Charlie, you're putting your hand back up. You're muted still. You're still muted. We can't hear you, Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie, you got to unmute. He's still muted. Yeah, I don't know if he sees it.
Boss is helping me.
Oh, there you go. Now we can hear you.
Yeah, my boss had to come and help me, you know what I mean?
Listen, we all need our IT support.
Well, listen, I had a stroke and she's really been an ace over the years, But anyway, the problem with our township has always been it's a narrow township, but a wide township. Okay, when you look at if you look from over at Lamont and beyond, okay, it's miles away from anywhere. Okay, if you're on the west to get to the east, is a hike. And even if if there was one in the center, it's not servicing, at least at my end of it here, the community, which has been accessible. Our ball fields, sports, it's huge in this side of the township. We have a lot of ball fields, so people they come this way anyway. Basketball players, okay, in our basketball court, we upgrade that every couple of years because we get a lot of traffic in there, and a lot of them are from the west side of the township. They come because we have a big basketball court and it's nice. I hate to see that. I really hate to see that go because you're with everybody and people travel from east to west. I mean, that's the way life is. And that and our libraries are so important. We got to get this place open sooner than later.
Hey, Charlie.
Even if it's for a short time.
Hey, Charlie.
Even if it's a short time, we got to clean it up temporarily until you start doing the construction and fixing it.
Charlie, what you brought up a really good component because the community centers, as everybody's been touching on all these, the libraries, exceptional type programs, the dance that we heard from at the Lamont groups. I mean, there really is exceptional programs. I have two children that excelled in athletics, both getting athletic scholarships. And I believe our athletic facilities are far below what they should be for the tremendous athletes that are in Cheltenham. Now, we were fortunate eventually to take our children to outside districts and outside areas to get to those facilities, whether it's basketball, where they have bigger courts, better, the AAU type facilities.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
field hockey, one of my kids had a scholarship in field hockey. We had to go to facilities because we didn't have them in Cheltenham. So we had to export our kids to other communities. And I believe part of this community component of it, we do need to fix those athletic facilities. The gym at Roland isn't very good sized. There's no runoff areas. It's not really safe. If you're a parent watching it, you're either sitting on the stage, you're not on the sidelines, you're up on the bleachers a little bit. It's tight. You're not going to get to host any AAU tournaments, or all our top athletes are actually going to go to another community to play.
Yeah.
And maybe somewhere part of our programming, as we go through that, we'll be talking about how we could make Cheltenham's community, at least on the recreational side, comparative to the other communities that have been supporting some of the special athletes in our area.
Yeah, I respect that.
Right.
Okay, Ed Morris, I see you have your hand up.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. All right. I'm all in favor of the decentralized library system. I think it works. I would keep the building, repair it, change the name to the Village Center. There's other groups who use that building, like the Boy Scouts. They had their Pinewood Derby there in the basement, and they haven't been able to use that. The Cheltenham summer camps use that building when it's too rainy or too hot, that the kids will go there for the day instead of the pool or staying at the park. And I belong to a group called Crafty Cheltenham, which are hobbyists, and there's about 128 of them. And I think it would be useful for that building, like the second floor, to rent out space to people who do hobbies and have places to sell their wares and also teach. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Ed. So the things that you're really bringing up is decentralized library system.
Yes.
That's something that you think is a critical component here. And presumably, just to kind of tease that out a little bit, it's really for access, for like more quick neighborhood access to the libraries.
Yes.
Yep. And then also the idea of, and I like this idea, and it's something that I have heard about, this idea of like renting out space for selling things. It's almost like a community incubator space where you might have some shared facilities that people can use, whether it's shop space or shared technology space for people who are doing kind of startup things.
Well, they're more particular, this Crafty Cheltenham, which is a Facebook group. People make stained glass artwork and things like that, furniture. I'm a retired woodshop teacher. I would like to find a place to set up a wood shop. There are places where if you've got that space, especially the second floor, have people rent it out by month or something like that. They can practice their crafts. They can sell their crafts. And also maybe there's some teaching. Cheltenham High School has adult classes. Maybe you want to try and do something like that using the Roland Center and generate some money. They had birthday parties. You could rent out the basement, but it was something ridiculous. It was like $200 an hour, and they wouldn't do anything there, and you had to clean up everything. So, make it $100 an hour, or set up a birthday party room or something like that. But the building can generate some of its own income. And again, I would change the name to the Village Center.
Hey, Ed, this is Eric. There was a wood shop on Glenside Avenue. Now, granted, I was in high school, and we were more robust in woodworking than maybe the current generations are now today. But I'm not sure if that facility is still open, but it was along Glenside Avenue. Now, I know that's more on the western side, but it was there was a facility for the wood shop that was open.
Well, my focus, thank you. my focus is primarily on that building. And again, if it comes to keep the building or demolish it, could that be like a referendum question for this November election?
Thanks, Ed. I do want to just capture the idea here, and Eric, you were bringing it up too, that it's like with a lot of the discussion of community centers, we focused on library, athletics, social events, and I just really appreciate that you're, we talked about dance. I really appreciate, Ed, that you're bringing up the idea of making things,
Trade.
right? Like whether it's makerspace kind of things, wood shop, this is stuff that, especially, I know, like even with my kids who are still little, this is like very exciting stuff to them. And I know that it gets, a lot of traction right now. So, I think that as we do look forward about the community center, I think it's a really good thing that you brought up here, and I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Diane, I see you have your hand up.
One thing I wanted to mention, and Barbara reminded me of it when she was speaking. We talk about people who are not connected, whether it's the internet or Facebook or however they're getting their news and their information in the township. And while it's going to sound very elementary, inside the community center doors, there were always bulletin boards with all the activities, community news, if there were meetings going on, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, anybody who wanted to post an activity. And we have a lot of enough people in the area that are not connected by age, economic status, for whatever reason, that they don't have access to digital information, who would walk up through the doors, walk in there and take a look at what was posted on the windows of the office, and then go to the bulletin board. And it always had all the monthly activities, concerts, church group offerings. So it sounds silly for a couple of bulletin boards, but it was a very, very important means of communication for people who went to the library and for activities. So I just, bulletin boards, right? But I wanted to bring that up.
I think it's a great point. I don't think it's silly at all. I think what you're talking about, just to put a name on it, is like a physical information center. And, I think that that's one of those things that, I can remember when I first moved to Cheltenham Township, like that would have been awesome to be able to go someplace and grab a whole bunch of information and learn real quick, even, if it's pamphlets or brochures, or talk to somebody who could give me information about stuff to do in the township for people to get connected to. So I do not think that's a silly one at all. Thank you very much for that.
Drew, to expand on that, we were doing this at Plymouth and Lower Gwinnett, is that we do have this information for the community. They do have a monitor that has that stuff that comes up and flashes over, but they do still have a tackable panel for people that are selling something, garage sales and other community events that are maybe not, say, sponsored by the township, but done by the community. So you could have the township organized stuff, maybe in a more formal digital aspect that's on a monitor. When people come in, they can see it, go through it, but they still have the tackable thing for their community events that are run really ultimately outside of the township's umbrella. So
yeah,
it is still a terrific method.
I mean, what I think of when my brain's going down a rabbit hole here. Apologies, but what it makes me think of is, the idea of a welcome center too, like, for the township, right? And it's really, whether you're a resident or you don't know anything about Cheltenham Township, but just physical information, to me, it kind of feels like this is a welcome center. We want you to learn about our township. We want you to get engaged with our township and our community. So I think that'd be great as a resident. I'd like that personally. All right, who else is out there? I don't see any hands raised, but I can feel it. I know that there's some more people who want to talk.
Drew, we had Beverly. She was waving her hand.
Oh, Beverly's not on. She's on my second screen. That's what it is. Sorry, Beverly.
That's all right. Like Diane, I live very close to the community center, actually a block away. And for about 10 years, I was a Girl Scout leader. We held our meetings in the Girl Scout room in the basement of the community center. And you talked about bringing people that, we have to go elsewhere for events and facilities. I hosted a service unit event every year at that community center. It brought hundreds of girls in doing community services. So it wasn't just Cheltenham Girl Scouts, it was Girl Scouts from our entire service unit, Springfield, Abington, and Cheltenham. In reference to the basketball court, I think the people who use the basketball court at Roland aren't looking for the same type of facilities that somebody who is looking to secure a scholarship is. I see people, I've seen people, I've lived in the township, I guess almost 40 years. I walk past the community center every morning. I see Diane some mornings as she's kissing her husband goodbye as I'm walking my dog. The library has been putting out craft kits that I would never have gotten if it was a centralized library or a centralized community center. I grab them for my family members who have toddlers and young children. I would never have done that because it's not walking. Irv's on here. Irv has been working on controlling traffic in this township, I think since he took the position. Now we're gonna all drive to a central location. That's just not, as I'm getting older, I wanna drive less. And that's my 2 cents. And, oh, no, one more. That building during World War II was used as a lookout center, the top floor. I just think there's historical significance to that building, and tearing things down and making new things don't make them better. They just make them new. If we can implement lead type mechanics and constructional aspects, geothermal, solar, we can renovate that building and still give the community its history. I am dead set against buildings being torn down. There's ways of renovating. My daughter is a lead construction manager, and she goes into buildings all throughout the city and makes assessments based on renovations, not tearing them down and building new. New isn't necessarily better. There was a comment about security.
Somebody's breaking up.
Really, I think we lost you.
Yeah.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I, for one,
Okay.
have never known of a security officer at Roland. My sister-in-law was the director of Roland for 30-some years, and she never had a security officer.
All right, thanks for your comments, Beverly. You went straight to my heart here talking about sustainability. So let's grab that for a second. I really appreciate that you brought it up, and you actually brought up 3 key components of it in your comments. And I think the first one was you were talking about driving less. And, I think that is something that I've captured here on the list, because I think I've heard that from a bunch of people here. You talked about energy and in particular, clean energy and making our own energy. So yeah, that building has a lot of roof. It has a lot of trees too, but it's also got a lot of roof. It's up pretty high. So, I think that one of the things, whether we are going, and I'll say this as a resident too, regardless of whether we're looking at existing buildings or new buildings, I think we need to look at what are going to be the smartest, most resilient and economically resilient approaches to energy for the township, right? We don't want to overburden the operational costs. We want to make sure that we can, if the grid goes down and we can make our own energy and store our own energy at our facilities, that's a great resource for the community when we think about having shelters, right? So I think it's really good points that you brought up there with that. And then You know, in terms of talking about old buildings, you're really talking about adaptive reuse. That's our industry term for it. And your daughter, who's a LEED accredited professional, probably knows that one. But it's really about keeping the infrastructure that we've already invested our work and our money and our carbon in, and building off of it, as opposed to scrapping it. So I appreciate you bringing up all those things. Oh, the other thing that you brought up that I definitely want to hit also, because this was a new one for the night, was spaces that we can bring in people from outside of the community, right? As you started to talk about the Girl Scouts and the ability to host an event that captures, that brings in people not just from Cheltenham Township. And that's something that I think is pretty exciting, especially, you know, as we think about all the townships that are around us and that we all have friends and family that live out there. It'd be nice to say, hey, come on to our event here in Cheltenham and have a space that we can be super proud of bringing our non-Cheltenham resident friends and family to. So that was great. Thank you. All right, who's left out there?
If you want, I'll say one more thing.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Oh, you just put yourself on mute. Come back.
You need your IT person.
There you go. Okay.
That's the boss. That's my boss now, you know what I mean? She does it all for me. I like what everybody's saying. I'm excited about it. And I'm excited about the East Coast, the east side of our township. And we do have not only our community center, you know, I know we're focusing on that. And we have other great facilities, okay? And we do have to energize it. We do have to make them safe. We do have to do everything what everybody's saying, okay? The biggest thing is, the biggest hassle will be the financial end of it. And then it's among the commissioners, and as Ann knows that I know, okay, that there's sometimes, you know, you gotta edge your way ahead to be the first one to get the finances to get your side done. And so what are we looking at? Are we looking at the Roland Community Center first? Are we looking at something else first? Timetable is very important, and especially if we're going to renovate buildings, which I hope there's a lot of them we will do. We got to have a timetable, and everybody wants to know when it's going to happen. Everybody's afraid they're going to knock it down and close it down. That's all I hear from my people in this town. So my boss has to say one thing.
Hi, I'm Nancy. So we have 6 children were raised here, and the community center is a very active place for us.
We can't hear you, Nancy. Can you get near the microphone, maybe?
Okay, so
You're the only person who can't hear her.
I said we raised 6 children here, and the community center was a very active part of our family growing up, neighborhood. You'd stand in line to sign up for different classes. You'd meet your neighbors. You became friends for life. The kids look forward to going to gymnastics, cooking classes, clay classes, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, dance, basketball, gymnastics, and judo was very big. Judo was very, not judo. Was it judo?
Judo.
Yeah, judo. Plus the fact you would just meet so many people and just stand around and talk. It's not just the village people or the east side, and people would come from Wyncote, and because they would see the different classes that were offered. So I wouldn't say it was just for walking distance. It's a community for Cheltenham.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you both said something there that I want to grab, because you both dropped pretty important things there. So Nancy, what you were talking about, which I think is really important, and Eric had talked to me about this too in his own experiences there, is that like informal meeting with people, right? You go there for something else and you meet somebody while you're waiting in line to sign up for Little League. You meet your neighbors and you get to know them, and that's really great. Charlie, I'm glad you brought it up because no one else has. but we'll
Right.
always have to, right? And so just to put the name on it here, what I heard is that we need to be fiscally strategic
Yes,
and responsible,
very much so.
right? I mean, I think that's one of the things that for me as a resident here in the township, it's one of the things that's super exciting about this project. It's not just to think about, you know, what's awesome and good and great for like us to go do all this cool stuff at a community center, but also to think about like, what does that mean fiscally for this township, for us as taxpayers? And, you know, it really gives us the opportunity to, you know, think forward and run at a target as opposed to trying to, you know, constantly be fixing everything, right? So.
Well, I know for spending time in the building and being a commissioner, grant writing. We used to get a ton of money. We had great grant writers. And I honestly, because I'm not involved, I don't know how many grants we get. And Ann could answer that one. I know she's on, but I have no idea. But we used to get a lot of grant money. And I was able, like, I was able to build all new things everywhere, at the pool, over here, over there. And it was great because it was grant money given to us for what we needed to get done. So hopefully, you know, we get some good grant writers in there and we can raise some money from so we don't have to tax people. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you. Sarah, I see your hand up.
With fiscally being responsible, I've asked this before, and I would love to get some answers on the value of that property and land, as well as every other piece of land in the township. You can only weigh what you can do and want to do if you know the value of that land and how much it could sell for. And just because you sell the piece of land doesn't mean you have to give up maybe the playground or the basketball court. You know, that could be a condition of sale, that there be some kind of recreation kept there. So again, I'd like to know how much it's worth. Thank you.
You're welcome, Sarah. That's a really interesting point. I mean, I think that, you know, you're bringing up the topic of, you know, land value, asset value, and what we need. I mean, we've heard a bunch of people say, like, we've got all this space we're not using. And so I think that that's just another, you know, facet of, you know, the long-term planning here, is to just really, what we're trying to do is align what our assets are with our needs to get to the right place. And I think that's a critical component of it. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so it's 8:50. Y'all have hung in there really good tonight. We've been on for a while. I think we'll try and go till about 9. Commissioner Brockington, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
Allison,
welcome.
I wanted you to sort of chime in. The comment came up about grants and things like that, which we are doing lots of. We're also working with our state rep and our state Napoleon Nelson with things like that. But Allison, can you jump in and just sort of give a brief synopsis of the grant programs and things like that that we're working on in the township?
Sure. We have been investigating as many options as possible for facilities. We've spoken with elected officials at the state and federal level. There are grants available. However, we need to, in order to be competitive for grants, we need to know where we're going. We need to be able to have a plan of action, budgets, etc. And also, funders want to know that whatever we do put in place is going to be there for the next 20 years or more. So they're looking at the useful life of building improvements. So those are all things that why we are going through this process, so that when we apply for grants to put money into these properties, we know we have a plan and we're going to stick with it, because there are a number of clauses, particularly say in library facilities grants, that there's restrictions put on the property so that if we sell it or do something that removes that improvement, we need to pay the money back. So we're trying to be very strategic in how we apply for grants so that when we do, we're competitive for them. As far as overall facilities, grand plans, I know we have a lot of costs that we need to put into these facilities. A lot of funding agencies, they have very particular things that they're looking for, but they're not going to carte blanche say, hey, here's a lot of money for your buildings. They're pretty much saying, municipality, that is your job to fund your facilities, but we can find different parts to fund throughout. So really it's trying to find funding sources where we can fit into what the funders are looking to fund.
And Mr. Brockington, from the architectural side, there'll be other grants that we'll bring to Alyssa's attention for the building if they're still out there. Recently there was a thing called an ACE grant. It's alternative clean energy. So we'll be looking to see if there's those type of opportunities, depending what other projects are that get developed out of this. The architectural team will be able to bring what we understand that are available from our state or from federal's side for construction.
Great. And I wanted to sort of touch base on something you said about our recreation facilities and sports facilities. And I think everybody knows that I'm really involved with a lot of those programs here. And, no, we don't have those facilities where kids are going to be doing AAU and things like that. But that's what our schools are there for, too. Our school buildings are rather new. The gyms are big. And, the gym at Roland, no, it's not going to be there for that kid who is, the superstar. Those kids will sometimes leave our township anyhow for greener pastures. I was lucky enough, I had a daughter who was very active in our soccer program. She stayed until she aged out. And, those programs in our township, they're for recreation purposes. If that kid is a superstar, that kid's not going to go to Roland or Lamont to play basketball. Just not going to. So, and that's what our schools are for. We have a new building at Cedarbrook, beautiful gym there, actually 2 gyms. So, and they use that gym also to let teams play there. They have tournaments there at Cedarbrook. So, I don't think it's really good to match those 2 together. We just need to make sure that we have a sort of a newer gym there at Roland, because it's too small. Same at Lamont, too small. And one other thing I'd like to add, I would love to have a meeting similar to this, but have kids tell us what they want. We know that we need to have meeting rooms for our seniors. I get that. We're going to have a dance class, but what about the kid who doesn't want to play basketball? What's going to be in that community center for that kid who says, nah, it's Friday night, I don't want to play basketball. That kid is probably going to be on his game, playing gaming. He's a gamer.
Yeah.
So what used to be recreation in 1970 is not the same definition maybe of recreation today. And we need to have our kids sort of tell us that. So, I would love to have a meeting and we have the kids say, this is what would get me to the community center. I know the dance class will. I know that, but maybe do we have chess? Do we have those things like that for our kids? And I would love to hear from the kids. For photography, things like that. But I would love to hear from the kids. And I'm going to go back on mute.
Yeah, Mr. Brockington, that's a great idea. When we do our charrettes, and Drew will touch on this, when we do our charrettes, we do bring the kids in because we want their input. It's a fun time. It's fun for them to see how ideas get created, how they form, and it's all part of their growing up experience, but it's also part of our community experience.
Maybe we can use our schools. School's going to be opening soon, and the kids will sort of be back together, and maybe somehow we can get with the school district and say, can we get a survey out to the kids? All the kids have tablets, most of them in the schools, and we can maybe get some type of survey out to our kids telling us what they want in our community centers, especially the kids in the village and the kids that are living Roland. It won't affect too much the kids who are living in Wyncote or Glenside because they don't have a community center. These are for those kids that are actually in those communities that we should be talking to.
And you touched on another good point. This electronic gaming is, I mean, they're putting these facilities at universities now. So there could be an area in the community center that has that opportunity in there. You know, for the kids. You're right. They're not doing the things that we did, and they're not doing the things that our kids did. These are the new kids, and they communicate and gather in a different fashion. And I agree, we need to hear from them. You know, there definitely might be an opportunity for those type of spaces in some of these community centers.
Yeah, you know, you guys have heard me bring up this term before, but I think, you know, going back to Commissioner Brockington, to what you're saying, absolutely get the kids involved. I mean, I think that I can speak for myself, and I'm guessing a lot of people on the call feel similarly. Like, I moved to Cheltenham Township because of kids. Right, because of my kids, and this is where I wanted to raise them. And so I think that hearing from our kids what matters is critical. But bigger picture than that, you know, when we talk about building a 50-year facility, right, one that we want to work for us for a very long time, for multiple generations, we always use the term long life, loose fit. When we think about our buildings, like what makes a successful building? Long life, loose fit, right? We can change this building easily over time. And, you know, because we don't know what it's going to be 20 years from now. We know what it is right now. And so, you know, again, through, you know, smart thinking, smart planning about the building, we can kind of build in that flexibility so we can change over time. All right. We're at 8:58. Rhonda, I see your hand up.
Real quick,
Yeah.
I promise. This is a reminder to you guys that as we're talking about all this, looking at the comprehensive plan survey that's posted on the Cheltenham website might be a useful tool to you also. I think we had Ian or Mitch can answer this. I think there was like 1,500 citizens that weighed in on what they wanted in the township. So that might be something to look at as we look through all the facility plans also. I'm not sure.
I love that survey. I love that survey. Made me so proud to live in Cheltenham. I got to say,
I didn't know if you saw it or not. So I was just wanting to make sure.
No, I love it. I remember I filled it out, and when I saw the results, I was like, that's why I love this township. It just made me so happy to see that that's, like, as a community where our values are centered.
Because I think that answers a lot of the other issues too that we brought up tonight in Lamont, et cetera, correct?
Yeah. It's very
It's
well
part of the whole component of when we start working on all these decisions. That's an important component. I just wanted to make sure that you saw it. So
absolutely. We are at time. Thank you, Diane. You beat me to the punchline in your comment in the chat. So thank you, everybody. I just, first of all, on behalf of the design team here, you know, I thank you for your candor. Thank you for your generosity of your time and of your comments. Really appreciated. I think, Diane, your question is right. We always want to end the meeting by talking about what the next steps are. On the design team side, Eric, Jamie, and I, as Eric was outlining earlier, we've got a bunch of work ahead of us doing some detailed building assessments, facility assessments, meeting with different departments within the township to develop a pretty detailed needs assessment by the different departments. And then we're looking ahead to the end of September, right, Allison? End of September.
Yes.
And we're hoping that in the end of September, we can do an in-person meeting outdoors. I think we talked about doing it at Curtis Hall, and with the tents out there, and really get together to workshop as a community through some of the findings that we come up with, and really start as a team, a community team, to look at what's next and what our options are.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming out tonight and sharing some really amazing ideas. You've given us a lot of food for thought. Wherever we go, I don't want to speak for the commissioners who have to make the decision. I know it won't be an easy one. But this is the process that we're going through to ensure that we have as much community input into the process. So that whatever we come up with is going to be an amazing fit for the entire community moving forward. So thank you. And look out for future web social media postings about our meeting in September and any other public meetings that we have for this process. And we'll try to keep some updates available on our website. I believe there is a facilities page on our website under hot topics. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.